Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do another what's their favorite candle, and today we're going to do the Gilmore Girls edition. And this video was recommended by Laura804. She gave me a list of a bunch of shows. I'm working on the other shows because I had to be honest, I didn't watch those other shows that you had listed, Laura, but I am watching a couple of them now. Super funny, and I'm going to bring you those videos as soon as I can. But Gilmore Girls, I did watch. It premiered in about the fall of 2000. I was a senior in high school. So I was 18 years old. I don't know that I have any pictures because I did not like my picture taken that time, but if I do, I'll pop it in there. And this story takes place in Stars Hollow, Connecticut. And this was my sister's absolute favorite show. I remember, I hope she doesn't watch this video. She watches them hit or miss, but like her husband now, at the time for like their first anniversary, had bought her like the DVD seasons of the Gilmore Girls show. And I was like, oh wow, what a perfect guy, because that was really her favorite thing in the world. So that was like her little anniversary gift for like their first year together. And she had them forever, but we don't even buy DVDs anymore. But yeah, so this story took place in Connecticut. Definitely a lifestyle I didn't know anything about, so it kind of intrigued me. But what I think really pulled us all into the Gilmore Girls was the mother-daughter relationship. There were different highlights of a mother-daughter relationship that I think we all connected to in one form or fashion, whether it be between Lorelai and Rory, or Lorelai and her mother, Emily. You know, these were more aristocrat type of people, so it was definitely different lifestyle than my small town Illinois growing up, where they were talking about going to schools like Harvard and Yale. No. So, there wasn't a lot of connection. And I'll be honest, when I was a senior, I wasn't watching a lot of TV. So truth be told, I had to go back later in life and watch Gilmore Girls because I was just too cool and too busy to watch it when it came out. But I do know it was very, very popular and ended in 2007. But yeah, I was just about to turn 18 when this show came out. So, it was at least a high school drama type of show when I was in high school. A lot of times, if I'm being honest with you, I like shows out of high school, like when I was way out of high school. So I was like, I'm watching these like little kid shows. I'm not going to tell anybody. But anyways, let's jump in. Like I said, the mother-daughter relationship was a big theme of the show. And then just, figuring out life at every age, because I don't think we ever have it all figured out, even if we look like we do. So I'm going to give candles to a bunch of characters, and I have a lot of favorites in this show over the course of its 7 seasons. But we're going to start with Lorelai Gilmore, who is the mom. She found out she was pregnant at 16 and ran away from her aristocrat parents and her debutante lifestyle. And again, I think we all just wanted to be like that, but she was so funny. She was played by Lauren Graham, who I loved in things she did after this. This was the first show that I had saw her in, but she was this strong single mom, but she really had this great connection with her daughter. They were more like best friends than mother and daughter, or like sisters. But again, when you have a child at 16, I'm sure with that age gap being a little bit smaller, there is this tight-knit bond that forms from kind of growing up together. And so, she was really down to earth for being from like a rich upbringing, and she definitely had a lot of fallouts with relationships throughout the seasons and her parents, and just trying to navigate her way through life. Because again, I think when motherhood happens so early, she took a little bit longer to figure out what she wanted for her life, because she, started so young as a parent. So we gave her a couple of candles, and I'm going to explain the first one. So I was looking through my collection for her because again, I was, her storyline really wrapped around her like wit. She was really strong. I didn't have any mom candles that really stood out to me. So at first I picked Tutti Frutti Jelly Beans because of this like Where's Waldo bunny. And it really just kind of reminded me of all of the different relationships in Lorelai's life. They all had something for her, but she was trying to find herself. And I think until she found herself, she wasn't able to find her love. So I thought it kind of seemed like a Where's Waldo moment. And this is just a nice sweet scent. She was always just like sweet but sarcastic, and I was like, yeah, like this candle, this is sweet jelly beans, mixed berries, and sugared lemon. But then I thought she was really all about the fun, and so I went with a fun candle. So she kind of gets 2, everyone else just gets 1. So this was the fun candle that I picked out of my collection for Lorelai. Champagne Margarita. This has notes of fresh squeezed lime, bubbly champagne, and sugar cane crystals. Again, she was just a fun, bubbly, good time gal. And so, her personality on the show really made a lot of people pick her as like TV's favorite mom, the one everybody kind of wanted, and like, I think that this was just kind of a fun candle. So I picked this one for her too. So she got both of those because, again, I was trying to really pick at some of the major themes of the storyline for these characters. And for her, it was love and then just being strong and finding herself. So we picked a fun candle and then, one about the relationships too. Okay, so for Rory Gilmore is Lorelai's daughter. And so she is a very quiet, subdued, deep thinker, gets really caught up in the romance of life and relationships and friendships. And so she was played by Alexis Bledel, and I loved her in so many things. The Sister to the Traveling Pants, yes. But again, she was, right around my age. So like her coming of age movies were kind of, really relevant at that time in my life. And so, like I said, most of the storyline for her is her just finding her way with this mom and dad that she, doesn't necessarily want together, but seem to keep finding each other. And, also understanding how her life will be different than her mother's, and also understanding her relationship with family that she might have been a little bit more removed from for a bit of her life because of the circumstances of which she came to be. So we loved her. She was that girl that the first love we got to see, and all the relationships and deciding what to do with their life and navigating friendships. Like us young girls at that time were all doing the same thing. So I tried to do a little play on words here, and I gave her rose water and ivy. This has scent notes of soft rose petals, rain-kissed ivy, and spring musk. It's one of those quiet candles, but is so strong. And I just thought those were definitely characters of hers from the show. And also Ivy, because, she went to Ivy League school. So, me over here being hilarious. But yeah, rosewater and ivy is like, just this scent that I feel like if she was reading a book in a garden or something, she probably came across. And it just really made sense for her as her character because, again, it's soft and quiet, but beautiful, strong in its own way. And that was really Rory Gilmore to me. My sister really loved Rory Gilmore. She was her favorite character. Okay, so now we have to talk about the man I wanted Lorelai to end up with. And I will tell you, notoriously, from all TV shows, I always pick the wrong guy, but this time I got it right. So we're going to bring up Luke from The Cafe. Luke Danes, who was played by Scott Patterson, and I just call him the one. But it takes them the trajectory of the entire show to get together because he is Lorelai's friend and confidant, kind of like a counselor. The girls always end up in the cafe with their woes, and he just gives them that straightforward guy perspective. And I think it's always helpful. And I didn't want to go with anything too cliche, but I did go ahead and pick warm apple pie because, again, Luke's Cafe is where half of the show was filmed. We fell in love with it. And if I don't know about any of you that watch the show, it always made me want something that you would specifically get in a cafe, like a piece of pie. This is baked Granny Smith apple, melted brown sugar, flaky homemade crust. And I'm pretty sure this is what the cafe smelled like when he was divvying out all of that advice. And I really could have went different directions with it. He was very hardworking and dependable. He just became like the saving grace for these two women as they were, going through all these different things in their lives. And he was just the confident, like, staple person. So just like a piece of warm apple pie when you need a talk with someone can be. So that's the candle we gave for Luke. Sorry, had a tickle. I'm back. Got some water. We're good to go. So pause for a water break. We're going to go into Emily and Richard Gilmore, the parents of Lorelai, the grandparents to Rory. They are rich. They don't claim not to be. They live a certain kind of lifestyle. They were definitely devastated when Lorelai went off to have a baby at 16. And, the relationship between Lorelai and Emily at the beginning of the show is very strained. And it maintains that where Mr. Gilmore, he gets to kind of be the middleman, the nice guy, the one that goes off and makes all the money and doesn't really have much of a say on anything else. So looks are everything to the Gilmores, and I wanted to give them candles that kind of made that make sense. So for Mrs. Gilmore, Emily, played by Kelly Bishop, which, fun fact, she was the mom in Dirty Dancing, and I loved that. She decides that she definitely wants to help Lorelai with Rory's tuition in exchange for them to have Friday night dinners. And I think that was her way of reaching out with conditions to try to fix the relationship and have a relationship with her granddaughter. But for her, appearances are everything. And so I definitely wanted to give her a candle that kind of made me think of like bougie rich and, you know, fabulous. So I'm thinking her front yard looks amazing, but she's never one day picked a single weed. And so it just made me think of this candle, Cider Lane. You know, that could even be the address of where they live. This has notes of warm caramel, Granny Smith apple, dark brown sugar, and ground clove. And again, like I said, for her yard to look this way, Mrs. Gilmore's never lifted a finger, but I bet she definitely had a lot to say because Mr. Gilmore was just off making all the money. But this is just a lovely scent, kind of makes me think of an autumn day. And I just don't know why, but when I think of Connecticut, I do think of like a nice fall day and beautiful gardens and all of that. So that's why I decided to go with Cider Lane for Mrs. Gilmore, Emily Gilmore. And then Richard Gilmore was played by Edward Herman, who was in the show for its entirety, but then didn't get to come back for the Year in the Life, like reboot, because he had passed. But they really had fond memories of him. He was a very special person on the show. And so for him, it was probably the easiest candle I had to assign. I gave him bow ties and bourbon. It's just what I think of when I think of that man that's rich, but isn't always involved in all the entanglements of the family relationship. He's just having a bourbon somewhere on a business call, probably for most of the show. So he has a hint of bourbon, fresh bergamot, splash of citrus. This is a nice masculine scent. I really enjoy this scent. I think that they would do well to bring this out in body care, but it does remind me of several pieces of body care from Bath and Body Works. But this came out in 2020, and I really enjoy this scent. But yeah, Mr. Gilmore is bow ties and bourbon. So now we're going to talk about some of Rory's best friends and then a few of her boyfriends throughout the show, and then we're going to end with a few more of my favorite characters. So let's just keep going. So we're going to talk about Lane Kim, who was Rory's best friend, super smart, kind of a little punk rocker. She was definitely like comedic relief and just a fun, spirited person, and that she was kind of the total opposite, very outspoken, very independent from Rory, but they were best friends. And so I know at one point she was in a band and she loved rock and roll, and she was always kind of like having her mother's disapproval of the things that she did, but she was played by Kiko Agina, I'm not sure, sorry. And this candle came to mind right away for her. I guess I definitely just wanted to go with Ghoul Friend. Look how punk rock vibes and just all the things this candle is, with also being a girlfriend, like her best friend, right? She was always her sounding board. So when Rory was going through it with either her mom or another girl at school or navigating her way through this lifestyle that she's kind of all these changes, she had her friend Lane. And Lane had a great storyline in the show too. Ghoul Friend is dark strawberries, ghostly peony, and spine-chilling citrus. Just one of my absolute favorite scents, and this packaging really stood out to me as the candle for Lane. So there's that. And then, so the other friend we're going to talk about would be Paris Geller, played by Liza Wheel, who was in How to Get Away with Murder. Loved that show. And she was like a high school foe turned really good friend in college because they got on the same page and had both experienced some life things and were there for each other. But at first she kind of played the antagonist to Rory, you know, kind of setting her up for failure. But for the most part, she was just really strong personality. So I gave her a really strong candle. Paris Geller got Paris Cafe. I mean, how does a girl study all night without a strong cup of coffee? I don't know. This has notes of rich roasted coffee, sugared brioche, vanilla cream with essential oils. And again, I just think this is what it smells like in college because you're just always having coffee to, you know, have a life and also study to become a doctor. So she definitely probably would enjoy this candle. This would be her favorite. And so that's why we gave that to Paris. But I really did like her. I think it was kind of neat how they had just set her up to be like her enemy, and then they became really good friends. That happens a lot as people grow, mature, and go through things. So let's talk about some of the boys, shall we? Let's start with Dean Forrester, who's played by Jared Padalecki. I saw him in, what other show was he in? What was he in? Was he in Paranormal or something? I don't know. Leave it down below. I liked him in that show, but he was basically Rory's like first love and high school love. So, you know, we always have to like learn our lessons the hard way. And they didn't end up together for long, but I gave him Varsity Jacket just because of that high school love. This just kind of smells like a young man's cologne for sure. It's a little woody, very aromatic, and I just thought this kind of fit the vibe of your first love, your first boyfriend in high school, the Varsity Jacket. Too cliche? Maybe. Talking about cliche, let's go into Jess Mariano, who was played by Emilio Ventimiglia. I don't know why I can't say anyone's names. I know him from This Is Us, Hot Dad, right? I never used a crock pot again. I can promise you that. That's another show I should probably do. I absolutely love that show. Okay, so he was the bad boy. He was Luke's nephew. He came to town. He was just so wrong for Rory, but they just fell in love, and we all loved the love. And so, of course, opposites attract. We like a good bad boy, and every bad boy I know has a leather jacket. So for Jess, we gave him the leather candle from Goose Creek. This just really smells like a leather jacket that's been kind of closed up. I kind of get a little bit of ozone from this candle, but definitely smells like a leather or a pleather jacket. I'm not quite sure because I've never had one, but this definitely goes for Jess because he was the bad boy. And then finally, we get to Logan Huntsberger Hunts, and he was played by Matt. I should have looked up how to say his names. Matt Shushri. I'm not sure. But he was the love interest in college. And then at the end, she ends up being with Logan because, again, she's now matured into the person she's going to be to pick the person she's going to be with forever. And so because he was a Yaley and he was like the rich kid, he definitely dressed up a lot in a black tie. So we gave him the candle black tie, which has aromatic sage, dark tonka bean, and rich sandalwood. One of my absolute favorite men's scents from Bath and Body Works. I love this scent. And it just kind of smells like a clean boy that's all dressed up. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I really did love Logan. And even though for a long time I was cheering for her to be with Jess and go back to him at some point when she'd done what she needed to do, Logan really did fit better and made sense. So we loved Logan by the end. Okay, now let's talk about Lorelai's best friends, because they really were what sold the show to me. We're talking about Sookie and we're talking about Michael from the Dragonfly Inn or whatever. Or Michelle, I'm sorry. Michelle from the Dragonfly Inn. I'm just really bad with names today, like more so than normal. But Sookie St. James was played by Melissa McCarthy, and she is just one of my favorite people on the planet. All of her one-liners, all of her, like, again, being the opposite of Lorelai, but they just worked. She was always there for all of her falls and just brightened her day. And she was a chef. And so I gave her this candle because it really makes me think of her. Positively Sweet Dark Chocolate Truffles. Again, she was always making something. She was always kind of coming up with her own thing. She had her own storyline in the movie or the show, and I really loved it. She didn't really come back for the reboot, but that's at that point she was the biggest star from that show. But the notes on this are rich chocolate, gooey butterscotch, and candied cherry. And it just kind of smells like something she would have concocted when she was sitting there talking to Lorelai about man problems or whatever it may be. And then they started the inn together and, you know, had their own success. So that was fun. And then we're going to talk about Michelle Gerard, played by Yannick Thiesdale. He was the concierge who was just worried about everything. And he was always just kind of like in his feelings about stuff. And he was just so funny. And so one of my favorite episodes when Michelle was explaining what he eats, it was a strict diet of 12 blueberries a day. And I can't remember why, but it made me think of this candle. So I gave Michelle blueberry sugar. So this is notes of sweet blueberry, brown sugar, and graham cracker crust. So yummy. But like I said, it was just that funny episode where he was talking about a strict diet and what he was doing it for. And I was like, oh yeah, we're going to give him the blueberry candle. This really smells like sweet, delicious blueberries. It's one of my favorites. And that brings us to the last character we're going to talk about today from the Gilmore Girls. Let me know how you think I did down below. We're going to include Christopher Hayden, who is Rory's dad, who is the love interest for Lorelai for so much of the show. And then they finally realize that they love each other, but they can't be together. But every time we thought she was going to get with Luke, she ended up going back to Christopher. And it was a really hard part to watch because some people think, oh, it didn't work out when you were young, but then they grew up and they had this child together and that bonds you for life. And so a lot of times we just thought that he was in the way and then they couldn't get together. Luke and Lorelai couldn't get together. But he was played by David, I think his last name is, I can't say, Siclifty? I don't know. I didn't really write them down very well. But Christopher he was a really good character in the show. I really liked him. You always kind of felt bad for him. He kind of always just like had bad luck things happen to him. But he was a really great guy. And then he ended up remarrying and having another child, but then always just kind of coming back into Lorelai's life at the wrong time. And so I know he probably smelled like a handsome, good, clean man. So I gave him the graphite candle. I went through all of my men's scents and I just picked this one based on the rugged. He always had like a little bit of facial hair and always a little scruffy, but like in a really good way. This is sage, bergamot, and leather woods. It kind of smells like a hard-working man, but also kind of like a man that's never worked very hard ever. I'm not sure. But it is really nice and it smells really good. I love the sage. I love the bergamot. This candle smells amazing. And like I said, sometimes it seemed like Christopher was like on hard times, downtrodden, but he also was one of those aristocrat rich kids. So really couldn't have been that bad. But I really like this candle. And again, I can't decide if it's a hardworking man or a man that's never worked hard that smells like this, but it does smell like a good, clean man, I will tell you. So those are all my picks for the show Gilmore Girls. I really love talking to y'all about that show. It's been a long time since I've seen it. 2000 was 22 years. It's been out of my brain for 10 years. I don't remember, like, sorry about pronouncing the names wrong and things, but it is still fun to talk about these shows. So let me know who your favorite character was from this show, and if you think of any candles that I didn't think of. Again, I always have to use my collection, so this is what I had on hand, but I had fun doing this one. I have a few more I'm working on for you all, and that's about it. Thank you for going on a little trip with me to Stars Hollow. It was fun to relive being 18. That's been a minute. I'm sad about that, but thank you all so much, and I will see you in a video probably tomorrow. Bye.